was there at the hospital. I was there all day, hoping, praying, hoping for a turnaround. My dad wanted to remember him in the way that he wanted to remember him. So people could choose if they wanted to or not.
What do you say to a man whose brother has just died of something that was supposed to be treatable? The doctors in Charlotte, North Carolina told Kurt Busch the truth, and the truth turned out to be the hardest possible answer. They told him that what happened to Kyle Busch was 1 in a million. That's what makes all of this so frustrating and difficult to accept, Kurt Busch said. To understand why that sentence lands the way it does, you have to go back to a hospital room on May 21st, 2026. Kurt Busch was in that room for the entire day. He was waiting for a change in his brother's condition that never came. I was at the hospital. I was there all day hoping, praying, hoping turnaround, Kurt Busch said in an interview on the national broadcasting company's Today Show. Conducted by Craig Melvin and broadcast on August 21st, 2026, 3 months to the day after his brother died. At the bedside, he fell back on the only language the two brothers had ever really used with each other, which was the language of competition. I said, "I got you, man. Come on, I got you. I got you. Come on, be strong," Kurt Busch recalled, before pausing and adding 4 more words. It just wasn't fair. Their father, Tom Busch, made a different decision. He did not go to the hospital at all, and he did not go on purpose. My dad wanted to remember him in the way that he wanted to remember him, Kurt Busch said. That interview was the first time Kurt Busch had spoken publicly about his brother's death since it happened. Kyle Busch was 41 years old. He won NASCAR Cup Series championships in 2015 and 2019, both for Joe Gibbs Racing, and he holds the all-time record of 234 combined victories across NASCAR's 3 National Touring Series. He made his Cup Series debut in 2004 and became NASCAR's all-time wins leader in both the Xfinity Series and the Craftsman Truck Series. He joined Richard Childress Racing in 2023. His older brother built a career of his own. Kurt Busch won the 2004 NASCAR Cup Series championship and 34 Cup Series races across a career that spanned more than 2 decades. He was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in January 2026, and Kyle Busch was there to help celebrate it. From 2005 through 2022, the two of them raced against each other and became the winningest brothers in the history of the sport. Both were born in Las Vegas. The end of Kyle Busch's life began at a racetrack in New York. On May 10, 2026, Kyle Busch was competing at Watkins Glen International. He believed at the time that he was dealing with a sinus cold. In the final moments of that race, he came on the radio, and what he asked for was not a strategy call. "Can somebody try to find Bill Heisel? He's the Hendrick doctor guy," Busch said. Bill Heisel is a longtime sports physician's assistant who has worked with NASCAR teams. When his team asked where he wanted to meet, Busch said his motorhome. "I'm going to need a shot," Busch said. He finished 8th in that race. It was 11 days before his death. Since then, one question has followed the entire story. Was he ignoring what was happening to his body? The reigning Cup Series champion Kyle Larson addressed that directly with ESPN. "From what I understand, he was seeking out and getting tested for whatever," Larson said. "I don't want people to think that he wasn't taking care of himself." Kyle Busch kept racing. Less than a week after Watkins Glen International, he entered the Craftsman Truck Series race at Dover Motor Speedway driving the number 7 HendrickCars.com Chevrolet. He won it. That victory was number 234, the record-setting win across NASCAR's 3 national touring circuits, and the final win of his career. 6 days separated that trip to victory lane from his death. What almost nobody outside the garage understood at the time was why he was pushing so hard to stay in the car. Immediately after the Dover weekend, Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ended up sitting in their separate rental cars at Wilmington Airport, waiting for their race teams to arrive and join them on private jets headed home. They talked. The conversation was notable partly because of their history. 2 years earlier, Stenhouse Jr. had punched Kyle Busch following the NASCAR All-Star race. This time, they talked about what their lives would look like once their Cup Series careers ended. For Kyle Busch, the answer had one subject. He had this whole succession plan, and he stayed more busy doing that than he did anything else, Stenhouse Jr. told ESPN. Anytime we were talking, it was about Brexton racing. He was definitely more happy talking about Brexton racing than anything else. According to ESPN, the plan had a clear sequence. Kyle Busch intended to leave full-time Cup Series competition, chase a Truck Series championship, race on the same track as his son, and then move into coaching him full-time. It would have given him something very few fathers in the sport ever get, sharing a racetrack with his own son while still competing himself. Denny Hamlin, his former teammate at Joe Gibbs Racing, described the mindset behind it. Kyle Busch had not won a Cup Series race since 2023, and the usual milestones had stopped providing motivation. It's very easy to be content with the amount of wins and the amount of accomplishments that he had, Hamlin told ESPN. You're like, what's the difference between 60 and 70 wins? Nobody cares. I think he was finding just as much accomplishment and sense of achievement when his kid would be racing. But racing had also been part of his life for so long that I think it did scare him thinking about the end. Kurt Busch framed his brother's death as the consequence of that ambition, an ambitious plan to stay competitive long enough to share a NASCAR track with Brexton Busch in a clean handoff from father to son. That's the power Kyle wanted to have, Kurt Busch told ESPN. Why not take a week off, or take a couple weeks off to regroup? My brother's mentality was perfect for the end of his career to try to time it out to where his racing would coincide with Brexton. And that way Brexton's getting the utmost attention from a current driver to develop him faster, quicker, stronger. He just worked and worked and worked, and unfortunately a tragedy happened. 3 days after the conversation at Wilmington Airport, Kyle Busch was at the General Motors Technical Facility in Concord, North Carolina. According to ESPN, he coughed up blood and struggled to breathe. On May 20, he became increasingly ill while practicing in a simulator. His crew chief asked him whether he was all right. He answered no. He was taken to a hospital by ambulance. He died the following day. The medical evaluation provided to the Busch family concluded that severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications. In the days after the death, Kurt Busch met with family members and with Kyle Busch's doctors in Charlotte, North Carolina. That is where he was told that death was 1 in a million. That's what makes all of this so frustrating and difficult to accept, Kurt Busch said. The Today Show interview then moved to a larger question, whether racing through illness rather than taking time away is part of the culture of the sport. Kurt Busch did not soften the answer. To be bluntly honest, yeah, he said, we're independent contractors, we don't have a union. That culture was the subject of the ESPN story published by Robert Klemko, in which drivers described the pressure never to give up their seat, no matter the circumstances. The clearest statement of it came from Bubba Wallace. No one's ever getting in my car unless I'm dead. It's literally got to be death, Bubba Wallace told ESPN. Wallace has lived that standard. He competed in the 2010 Drive for Diversity Combine in Virginia while battling swine flu, attempting to secure a NASCAR opportunity. He spent race day isolated inside a motorhome until the last possible moment before getting behind the wheel. I honestly can't even say I was miserable inside the car, because when I got in the car, I felt fine, Wallace said. I did what I needed to do. But before that, it was horrible. For some reason, you feel better in the car. Wallace has also acknowledged that he has rarely sought medical care and has said he has not visited a doctor in about 10 years. The pattern is older than any of the current drivers. In 1984, Ricky Rudd crashed in the Busch Clash at Daytona and suffered rib injuries, a concussion and significant swelling around his eyes. For the Daytona 500, his swollen eyes had to be taped open. He finished 7th. 1 week later, still dealing with the effects of the crash, he returned to Richmond and won. The instinct that produces champions in NASCAR is the same instinct that kept Kyle Busch in a race car at Watkins Glen International and at Dover Motor Speedway. For Kurt Busch, what has been lost is not only a brother but a form of communication that existed nowhere else in his life. Him and I were carbon copies of each other. We could speak on track without saying a word, Kurt Busch said. He described how it worked in practice. Pass me here, I will draft with you here. I miss the words we never spoke to each other and the vibe that we had on track, he said. On the question of how a family is supposed to handle this, he was direct. There is no book, there is no outline on what we're supposed to do right now, Kurt Busch said. There's going to be a discussion when I see someone. It's all right, we'll get through it. Time heals. He also appeared in the second episode of the USA Network documentary series NASCAR Americana, titled Family Bonds, which was released following the Cookout 400 at Richmond. In it, he reflected on the pre-race tribute at the Coca-Cola 600 earlier this year when the NASCAR community came together to honor his brother. To have that moment of symbolization for Kyle and to see Brexton standing there, it was a moment of, wow, he's gone. We're not going to get him back, Kurt Busch said. Brexton Busch is 11 years old. He currently races Legends cars on pavement and sprint cars on dirt tracks. He returned to competition in June, weeks after his father's death, and earned his first victory since then in a micro-sprint race in Tulsa, Oklahoma on July 17. Kurt Busch has taken on the role of mentoring him. He's a prodigy, Kurt Busch said. He was on gas even before all of this, right? He can be a big star in the world of motorsports. He's 11, but he's already racing like an 18-year-old. So, it's time to be around a bit more. Few people in the sport could offer a better education. Kurt Busch is the only driver in the history of the Cup Series to win with 4 different manufacturers taking checkered flags in Ford, Chevrolet, Toyota, and Dodge machinery. He won races with 5 different teams: Roush, Penske, Stewart-Haas, Chip Ganassi, and 23XI Racing. He was Truck Series Rookie of the Year in 2000, won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2010 and the Daytona 500 in 2017, placed 6th in the 2014 Indianapolis 500 in the only open-wheel race of his career, and was named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers in 2023. His own driving career ended the way it did for medical reasons as well. Kurt Busch was forced to retire in 2022 after a crash at Pocono left him with a concussion while driving the number 45 23XI Racing Toyota. Asked what he wants people to remember about his brother, Kurt Busch pointed at the record. It's already there. Winningest driver in NASCAR history in all the series, he said. The tenacity that he had, it was every day, 24/7. To help people in the latter part of his career, to be a great father like he was. It will all shine as time puts different things in spotlights. On August 21st, 2026, exactly 3 months after the death, the Kyle Busch Invitational was held at Bowman Gray Stadium. The event featured 51 Legends cars and 18 Bandoleros, with all proceeds benefiting the Bundle of Joy Fund. Brexton Busch competed and finished 6th in the feature race. Before the green flag, Samantha Busch delivered a 5-minute speech to the crowd. These past few months have been the hardest of our lives, and I don't think I'll ever be able to fully explain the love and support from all of you and what it has meant to myself, Brexton, Lennox, and our entire family, she said. She described how the event came together. The excitement in his voice and the twinkle in his eyes when he was telling me about texting Ben trying to make it happen was like watching a kid on Christmas, she said. He loved this place. Its history and the energy here, but more than anything, Kyle loved grassroots racing, Samantha Busch said. It was where his love for this sport began, and no matter how far his career took him, he never lost that. He believed in giving young racers a place to learn, compete, and dream big, and fall in love with this sport the same way that he did. She spoke about watching her son race without his father present. Watching Brexton continue chasing his dreams without his dad beside him is absolutely heartbreaking, she said. She explained the origin of the charity the event supports. The couple spent almost a decade trying to complete their family and battled infertility, miscarriages, and in vitro fertilization. We knew we wanted to give that same hope to other couples desperately praying for a family of their own, she said. Fatherhood changed Kyle in the most beautiful ways, and it was clear to see how much this mission meant to him. She closed by addressing the crowd directly. Kyle was a racer to his core, but he knew the sport was nothing without you fans, she said. Then she gave the instructions she said her husband would have given. Racing will never be the same without him. Our lives will never be the same without him. But I know Kyle's love for this sport, his impact on it, and the legacy he left behind. And will continue to do so through all of us. So tonight, let's do exactly what Kyle had wanted. We race on.